On Mindanao, a major island in the southern Philippines, foreign-based companies are destroying the environment and robbing local and native people of their livelihoods. Corporate agribusinesses like U.S.-based Dole, Del Monte, Monsanto, along with international and Philippine mines, are polluting waterways and destroying the surrounding farms. Chinese, European, Canadian, and Filipino mines are stripping away the mountains to get at what some estimate to be the largest iron deposit in the world. There are also some of the most significant gold, nickel, and copper reserves in Asia. Despite its natural riches, most of Mindanao is struggling, with 6 out of the 10 poorest provinces in the impoverished country. Protecting and paving the way for foreign corporations is the Philippine military, forcibly evacuating residents from their lands and even killing and kidnapping.
Anang among pagkuan sa sundalo, sila man gyud ang mga protector sa mga langyang company.
The Real News Network spent time in Caraga in northeast Mindanao, one of its poorest regions but richest in terms of minerals and agriculture. Sister Stella is an advocate for Mindanao and has seen the damage to the environment and people because of the invasion by cash crops like Dole's bananas.
Biodiversity, this is beauty, this is creation. All has the place, all has the life, all has the right to live. But with capitalism, with massive agribusiness plantations, only one has the right to live, and that is banana.
Dole has over 13,000 hectares of banana plantations in the region, more acreage than the entire land area of the city of San Francisco. Growing cash crops like bananas and oil palm means 2 important staples, corn and rice, are being displaced, and so are the farmers that grow them.
Kung wala ang Dole, ang hisgutan ng panginabuhian sa mga maghuma, igo-igo gyud. Supisente siya sa panginahanglanon sa matag pamilya.
Dole is taking over leases and lands that tenant farmers used to till. Now those farmers work for Dole and don't earn enough to survive. Corporate plantations aren't the only destructive forces in Caraga. Large-scale corporate mining is tearing down mineral-rich mountains and sending them off to be processed in another country. How can these corporations be getting away with this? Upon the recommendation of the World Bank, the Philippines liberalized its mining policies in the Mining Act of 1995 to attract more foreign engineering and capital. The act allows foreign corporations 100% ownership of the minerals. The government only taxes 2% of the value of the mined ore, so now the government is basically giving away its mineral riches. Threats to the community aren't just to their environment and livelihood. The Philippine military is terrorizing local and native people to make way for mining, logging, and agricultural corporations. Since this farmer was a little girl, her indigenous Manobo community has been forced off their land at least 4 times by the Philippine military.
Ang nahitabo, ang pagpuyo nila sa kabalayan, sa eskwelahan, pagpangransak sa alkadep, pagpangdaot sa eskwelahan, pagpuyo sa kabalayan, nga maupod ni siya ang hinungdan sa hinanali pud namo nga pagbakwit.
Local cooperative miners are also being threatened by the military.
So, bakit ayaw ng mga sundalo na nandito kami nagtatrabaho at ayaw nila maging umagat yung aming hanap buhay? Gawa ng gusto nila na malagyan dito ng malaking mina. Yun ang pinakagusto ng mga sundalo. Siguro ito ay sa government natin.
Josie told us the military blasted their tunnels, burned down their houses, and destroyed their pipes.
While the situation in Caraga is dire, with agribusiness, mining, and logging destroying their environment and communities, local people are finding strength in organizing.
In Hanayan, in the jungles of Surigao del Sur, a community solidarity against corporate intrusions is based around a school founded by 5 native tribes. They founded Alcadev, the Alternative Learning Center for Agricultural and Livelihood Development. The school teaches farming, community development, and what's happening because of the corporations and military. They teach not just to high schoolers, but adults as well. One of the groups that established the school is MAPASU, an organization of indigenous peoples. The full Cebuano name translates into persevere in the struggle for the next generation. The school in Mapasu fosters solidarity, which is why the military keeps trying to shut the school down.
Tungod kay ang mapaso organisasyon usa man siya ka nagasupak sa mining companies, mauna nga kanunay nilang ginabalik-balik ginaoperasyon. Unya nakita naman nila nga ang mapaso naa nagi ligong panaghiusa ug naa nay kalambuan sa mga tao. Tungod kay sa tinud-anay ang mga project dinhi wala man ni siya gihatag sa gobyerno. Kung dili gipaningkamutan ni siya sa katawhang lumad nga mabarog ang eskwelahan.
So far, Hanayan has been successful in fending off mining corporations. In the nearby community of cooperative miners, it's clear that they're ready to fight against the corporations and military to defend their way of life.
Na kapag pumasok dito ang malalaking kumpanya ay hindi kami papayag at yun ang sinasabi namin, di na baling mamatay sa bala, wag lang sa gutom.
Leaders of organizations opposed to U.S. military presence from throughout Asia and around the world met at a conference in Manila, Philippines this summer.
The people, united, will never be defeated.
They say the U.S. military is responsible for grave human rights violations and environmental destruction that go unpunished. The International Conference on the U.S. Pivot to Asia-Pacific, U.S. Militarism, Intervention, and War was attended by nearly 60 delegates from 13 countries such as South Korea, Japan, Australia, and the Philippines. The Secretary General of Dyan, a Philippine progressive political organization and a lead organizer of the conference, was among those who decried this newest wave of U.S. militarization of Asia.
It's high time that the people in Asia be allowed to determine their own course and to chart their own direction and their own foreign policy, free from any dictates of the United States.
Despite the support of their own respective governments, the delegates see U.S. military intervention as a violation of their country's sovereignty. Every Philippine administration has been beholden to the U.S. and permits their military presence despite a prohibition in the Philippine Constitution. The current President Benigno Aquino administration is no different.
Engage in training together, work on a range of regional issues together, all of which is consistent with the announced pivot by the United States back to Asia and reminding everybody that, in fact, the United States considers itself and is a Pacific power.
Many see the U.S. military's shift to Asia as a counter to China's growth as a world power, both economically and militarily. Threats from North Korea also come into play. The U.S. plans include sending 70,000 troops to the Asia-Pacific region and 60% of the U.S. Navy. And of course, economic interests are also at the forefront of the U.S. pivot.
Americans have a history of dodging investigation and prosecution for alleged crimes committed in the Philippines over their 115 years of military presence in the country. Here are some of the most recent abuses.
What we've seen in the past, we had a rape victim back in 2006 where the main suspect was not even put in a Philippine jail despite having been convicted by a local court. And eventually, they were able to reverse the ruling and spirited them away back to the United States. We have a case, a recent case last year of a Filipino fisherman who was killed when his fishing boat was rammed by a U.S. Navy patrol boat, and nobody was held accountable for that because the U.S. merely settled with the family and gave some undisclosed amount. Then you have a case where a Filipino translator was found dead, in a facility, in a Philippine facility occupied by American soldiers.
This used to be the rest and recreation center for the American soldiers. I mean, we have seen a lot of prostitution happening, and of course, rape, and of course, a lot of single mothers left afterwards.
Human rights abuses in the Philippines was discussed at an adjoining conference and is something the president of the U.S. National Lawyers Guild wants Americans to bear in mind.
This is our taxpayer money that's actively being spent on U.S. military personnel coming here, collaborating with the Philippines military in joint military exercises and possibly some other activities. And this is where we here at the conference have been learning about grave human rights violations that are being committed to this day, including torture, disappearances, extrajudicial executions, and it seems that there's complete impunity for the military.
Many believe that if tensions over the disputed waters and islands escalate, the U.S. will be on the side of the Philippines, a notion Renato dismisses.
The U.S. has tremendous economic interests in China. The U.S. has big investments in China. The U.S. has big debt, owes a lot of debt to the tune of $1.2 trillion to China. So it's not really likely that they're going to war with China in the near future. But since the tension is there, they kind of have exploited that situation for their own interests.
Thousands of people took to the streets when the president of the Philippines delivered his fourth State of the Nation address. They decry the president's failure to address the widespread poverty, corruption, and human rights abuses.
I'm here at the People's State of the Nation March against President Benigno Aquino III in Manila, Philippines. They are saying that within the 3 years since he's taken office, there has been no change.
The protesters marched along one side of Commonwealth Avenue, a 15-lane wide highway that leads towards the site of the president's speech at the Batasan complex, home to the House of Representatives. Some protesters toppled a section of the razor wire fence put up to divide the street. The procession began to pour onto the other side of Commonwealth Avenue in an attempt to bypass the barricades set up to prevent the march from getting close to the president. They rushed into oncoming traffic and soon went head-to-head with a line of police.
The march is now stopped at Commonwealth Avenue, where there's a standoff between the police and the protesters.
It wasn't long after that the police sent reinforcements. They blocked off the road with a line of trucks and a hose ready as they advanced on the protesters. The chairperson of an international advocacy group for Filipino migrants was among those hurt in the confrontation with police.
During the negotiation, we're still waiting for the result. When the police move and try to arrest me, while they are holding my hands, some of the policemen hit me at the back with their shields and truncheons. That's very painful, and that is a very violent dispersal, because that was the agreement. We are waiting for the result of the negotiation, but in a matter of 3 minutes, the police moved and hitting our people.
The police greeted the march with symbols of peace, but soon after, they were greeted with truncheons, shields, and a water hose. 3-time former Congresswoman Lisa Massa, who represents the Gabriela Women's Party, criticized both the police and the president in her remarks to reporters.
Patuloy namin na isisigaw ang mga problema ng ating mamamayan, ang kahirapan, ang kawalan ng tirahan, ang mataas na presyo ng bilihin, ang kawalan ng trabaho, kung kaya't ito ang mga kailangang solusyonan ng ating administrasyon. Ayaw na namin ng pambabola. Kahit hanggang ngayon, kanina, ginamit na naman ang mga kababaihan. Kinukondina namin ang paggamit sa mga kababaihan, sa mga pakulo, sa pagbibigay kuno ng mga bulaklak at saka mga balloons para kami pigilan na makapagprotesta. Itong mga pakulo ni Pinoy, mga pambobola sa mamamayan, ay hindi namin kakagatin. Sapagkat alam natin kung paano nila dinahas yung mga maralita. kung papaano nila binusabos ang mga mahihirap.
There's extreme mistrust among the activists against the government because of a record of human rights violations and crackdowns on dissent that continue under Aquino. The human rights organization Karapatan documented 142 extrajudicial killings, and nearly 300 community organizers and activists were illegally imprisoned since he took office. Angie Ipong was an organizer for peasant farmers when she was arrested in 2005.
I had been a political prisoner for 6 years, and I had experienced torture in the hands of the military. And that's why when I was out, I was dismissed from all my charges. I told myself, I must join the ranks again to be able to fight this unjust system.
The crowd burned the effigy, chanting that the president is a puppet for the U.S. Many of the protesters are against the increasing U.S. military presence in the Philippines and foreign-owned mines and plantations that are wreaking havoc on the environment and local communities. Protests around the country and the world among the estimated 12 million overseas Filipinos are traditionally held in solidarity with this rally in Manila. This is Dyan Ruiz for the Real News Network.